On today's episode of the CX Insider podcast, we sit down and talk to Customer Experience and Development General Manager of Electromin, Chris Warwick. We'll be talking all about Electromin and the challenges of being an electric vehicle innovator in a petrol-centered country, as well as the potential of future developments. We will also talk about the possibilities of integrating the physical and digital space through Electromin's new EV zones. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more episodes. This podcast has been brought to you by ACF Technologies, global leaders in customer experience management solutions. Now let's get into the episode. Chris, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your journey in the field of the automobile industry?
I guess if we go right back, I left school not knowing what to do really. Fell into an apprenticeship as a technician as a bit of an accident. Went for some work experience and then sort of stayed on. And that's where the automotive industry sort of got hold of me really. From there I moved to different positions. So I did a stint with sort of fast fit operations and service reception and those sorts of things. And then into manufacturer. So back in the sort of 90s, I joined Daewoo when Daewoo cars were in the UK.
Yeah, I remember Daewoo.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And I have to say that taught me more about customer experience in those early days than anything else has done. And, you know, some of the things we were doing back then, we're only starting to do in businesses now. So it was a real good grounding. And then I sort of left there, got into sort of motor finance, which gave me loads of exposure to lots of different dealer groups and lots of different brands, from your little sort of, you know, one-man vans to your big dealer groups throughout the country and throughout the world, really. So that was a really good time. And then from there, I got into manufacturer-owned dealer groups. So Mercedes-Benz retail and Porsche retail. And then into Jardines, which was my previous job for about 5 years or so, until I landed in Saudi Arabia last year.
Wow.
So automotive all the way through, pretty much.
Yeah. It's running for your veins. Motor oil going through it.
Yeah. It does, yeah, it does. Yeah, and a bit of electricity now, I guess. But
yeah. You're just a hybrid now.
Yeah, exactly. I am a hybrid now, I think. Yeah, it does grab hold of you, this industry, you know, and I think the more time you spend in it, it's harder to kind of leave. So. I
don't want to put, like, I don't want to let listeners know your age, but roughly, how many years have you been in the automotive industry then?
I've been in the automotive industry. This is my 35th year of working. Yeah. 35th, 36th. Moving to my 36th.
So you started when you were about 12 then, is that what, yeah?
Yeah, I was still doing a paper round, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, fine.
Can you tell us a bit about the work you do with Electromin?
Yeah, so I am, I started on the 1st of January last year as the Customer Experience and Learning and Development Manager. So that sort of has two facets to it, really. Of course, you know, learning and development, looking after training and development for, you know, everyone within the businesses, and I say in the businesses within the showrooms that we're building in the process of building, which I'll come on to later. But of course, you know, customer experience kind of goes hand in hand with training and development these days. You know, you have to create that customer journey, that customer experience, and make sure all of your staff live and breathe it. So hence why the two are sort of bolted together, and it made sense for me to look at, you know, everything and anything really. So.
Chris, one thing I wanted to just ask you about, and this is actually really weird timing because it was just this weekend. Me and one of my closest friends, he's really excited. He wants to buy a new car. And we went to, I don't know how well you know the area, but we actually went to Guildford, which is just around the corner from me.
Yes.
And there's an industrial estate called Slyfield Industrial Estate. And I'm not joking, there is probably 7 or 8 dealers all on this one single road. He had in his head, he wanted a particular Audi. He knew exactly the model he wanted. We go into the showroom. He asked the salesperson to see the car. They were like, I'm sorry, mate, we don't have one. Which is, okay, fair enough. You can't have every model of every car. So we're both looking at him like, you know, like desperate. Okay, so what's your plan? And he just kind of walks away. And we're like, no, we were definitely interested in getting a car. And he's like, no, we don't have one. So now I'm thinking in my head, come on, buddy. Go on your system, check the stock of other people in your group. He doesn't do any of it. And, you know, every time this happens to me personally, because I spend my life talking to the automotive industry, I'm kind of flabbergasted, but it seems really common. And I just wanted, because you've got 30 years worth of industry knowledge, why does this happen in the automotive industry?
Well, firstly, it's probably one of my biggest bugbears because, you know, when somebody goes into a showroom, they're excited, but they're also a little bit nervous. It's a daunting experience going into a car showroom. I've walked into thousands of car showrooms over my lifetime. But when it's the first time, you still feel a little bit, a bit nervous. And we don't think like a customer. The industry doesn't, there's pockets of it. Of course there is, very successful businesses and successful people. But that friend of yours who's walked in, he's going to be excited, he's going to be a little bit nervous, he doesn't know what's going on, he doesn't know the surrounding, the process, all of these sorts of things. And then we just burst their bubble. We haven't got one of those or this or that. And it's, when you look at it like that, it's awful, isn't it, really, to think about how we treat customers and treat individuals. And going back to your question, why is it like that? I think there's a number of things, really. Complacency. I think people get complacent. They're answering the same. We can always sell what we haven't got, almost, can't we? we've got thousands of people waiting for one of those, so you're not special, kind of thing. We pay people. The industry has always been set up to pay people on results, not activity. So you sell a car, you get paid extra. You get
commission, or
very simple terms. You get commission, or you get basic salary and you get commission. So in their mind, it's very easy to go, well, I haven't got one of those, so I'm not going to get paid. So what's the point of spending time with you? But the good salespeople out there, the ones that really care and it really matters to them, is about nurturing that customer. Yes, I may not have that exact car for you, but I know nothing about you. Yeah. So if I spend a little bit of time just qualifying your needs, understanding what you need from a car, well, I might have an alternative. But at the moment, I'm making an assumption that you've picked that car based on, X, Y, and Z. Now, 99% of the time, customers do pick the right car. Of course they do. They do all the research online. They've got, abundance of information. But actually, if I sat down with you and said, well, how about this? Have you considered this? Because you've told me this, 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 and this. This one might actually be better for you in the long run because your children are growing up, or you're saying that, I don't know, for example, your son's going to be playing football in the future, and it's likely that you're going to be picking up a load of kids, and you'll need a bigger car, whatever.
But it's actually his motivator. All of a sudden he's got a new other half. Have been together quite a few years. She's got 2 kids, and he's having to get rid of his 240M to get himself a bloody 4x4 SUV. Yeah, and I'm thinking, what are you doing, Matt?
And I'm guessing, I'll have a little bet with you that the sales executive didn't find out any of that information.
Didn't ask anything, and that's the frustration. And I suppose what you're saying there, actually, Chris, is going to become even more important with this giant explosion of electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles, because you are right. There is a fountain of knowledge that you can get online. You can read reviews. You can watch YouTube car views, influencers that make money from literally reviewing cars. What a great job. Sounds all right, doesn't it? And a lot of them a lot better looking than Jeremy Clarkson as well, to be honest. But the one thing is, to me, the whole moving into the electric car space, whether it be hybrid, whether it be just a straight out EV, that's still unknown to most people. A lot of people don't have an electric car, or it's certainly buying their first electric car. And there can be, it's going to be cheaper for me, it's going to be brilliant. But unless you qualify that client and really find out what they're going to be using it for, it might not be the right choice, mightn't it? It could be completely the wrong thing. How are you, with your role of Electromin, how are you tackling these challenges? Because there's loads, isn't there?
It all starts with recruitment. It all starts with finding the right people. And that's not necessarily, and we're not at that stage quite yet, but it's sometimes recruiting people outside of the industry. And I know that's a bit of a bold statement of the, saying what I've done for 30 odd years, but taking people who aren't wired that way, that are wired differently, people from retail industry, people from hospitality industry, where, they're not full of bad habits and, are able to kind of look at things a little bit differently. But also people that are passionate about technology, passionate about the future, because an electric car is, I use this example all the time, your friend with an Audi, for example. If I wanted a saloon car, if I wanted a German saloon car, there's probably 3 or 4 different brands I would go to. If I wanted an electric car, we found this when I was working for Jardines, that, we had a lot of Audi businesses, and people were driving into those businesses and saying, well, I'm also looking at a Hyundai, I'm looking at a Kia, I'm looking at a Volvo, Polestar, whatever it may be, all sorts of things that historically with ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, it would just be 3 or 4 different competitors. So we have to be employing people that are very open-minded, tech-savvy, and want to do a fantastic job and take time with that customer to sit down and remove that fear, that uncertainty, that doubt in customers' mind, that just niggling away going, well, I really want an electric car, but... And if we can do that, we're onto something. I mean, I've had hundreds of conversations with people who have asked me about electric cars, and we've ended up saying to them, an electric car is not right for you right now. It will be in the future when range or speed of charging things, but the type of driving you do, and then of course when you have those conversations, it's like anything in life, isn't it? People are like, well, why not? I want one,
Yeah. Why are you taking it away from me?
Yeah, why are you taking away from me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they change their lifestyle to suit it. No, I'll do fewer journeys or whatever it may be. But it's just being honest with people. I think what we have to do really well is sell without selling. Facilitate that purchase, allow the customer to buy whatever you want to call the phrase. But it's not a traditional sales role. It's more than that.
You're definitely getting somewhere there, because if you look at silly cartoons and stuff, the role of a car salesperson is always depicted as that Del Boy wheeler dealer, close a deal, isn't it? And you're basically saying that your route is the complete opposite of that. It's the caring, consultative, questioning, let's match what's right for you. And if we don't have what's right for you, I'll be honest and upfront and tell you.
Yes. I'll make it my goal to get you to like me enough to tell me everything in a very relaxed way so I can find a solution for you. Now, that solution might not be tomorrow. It might be 6 months down the line or whatever it may be. But what I'd like to think, and I've always said to salespeople, if a customer walks out your showroom and you can hand on heart say, I did everything I can, and they walk to the next, you're in Slyfield, retail park or whatever it may be, and you get a poor experience and you get a poor experience and get a poor experience, you are more likely to come back to that original showroom and go, yeah, I know I've got to wait, but I know that you've got me in your heart, sort of thing. Sounds soppy, I know, but it's such an important and emotional purchase, a car. And we miss that sometimes. The industry forgets that because it's just another deal. It's just another number. It's just another one towards the target. And we don't think like a customer. We don't walk in the shoes of that customer and go, what's got them to this point? When I was working with Jardines, we had Volkswagen dealerships, and I think from the number was something like, on average, a customer before they bought a Volkswagen did 16 hours of research online. Most of that was watching YouTube videos, as you say, Instagram, influencers, configuring cars on the configurator. Oh, it's going to look like this and so on. That's a lot of time, isn't it, to invest. And then your friend's done that on average, and then he goes into a dealership, and within seconds his dream is shattered. I mean, it's just horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bad. It is bad. But the interesting thing is it makes me realise, and you've just said there, you were talking about getting people from other industries, hospitality. I can absolutely see why you'd want people from that industry, because to them it's the opposite. It's all about making the customer feel loved and wanted, and this is your 5-star experience. What it does really kind of pose the question, and I'm sure our listeners would want to know about this, is where do you see the role of physical versus digital in automotive?
Yeah, and it's something that we've been working on in our industry for a while, and it's having that blended approach to be able to start, the traditional car sales journey, if you like, is, starts in the showroom. Many years ago, starts in the showroom, pre-online kind of thing. You walk into the showroom, I need a new car, and that journey starts. Now, of course, we live in that digital world and social media. You could be simply scrolling through something on Instagram and you see a car and a picture, you click on it, you look at it, oh, that's nice. And it's just a thought, and then 6 months later, you go back to it. But we need to have that blended approach where if you want to start the process from the comfort of your own home, you could even go through the whole process, drop something into your basket and go, I just don't want to hit checkout yet. I want to touch it, feel it, drive it. Or you could do a combination of both. You could configure a car, come in, go home, drop it in your basket, purchase, et cetera, et cetera. And the businesses that have that very much blended approach, which is really simple, and not having to give tons of information is another thing. If I want to get a finance quote, if I want to configure a car, I don't want to give you everything because I don't trust you. Some businesses do it really well. It's simply just an email address and a name. You can do whatever you like. And then if you don't check out, yeah, of course, that company's going to email you and go, oh, you looked at this and here's something similar and so on. If we get that right, people are more relaxed. We sit at home, we buy most of our things at home, don't we, in our mind?
My Amazon shopping list is absolutely outrageous. I think I checked how many parcels I've had delivered in 2023, and I won't say it on this episode, but it's quite embarrassing. It averages more than one a day. That's all I will say.
Yeah. That's an illness.
Yeah, it's an addiction.
If we make the process, and why shouldn't buying a car be simple and emotional as well, and exciting? We bought my wife's car. She's got an electric car, mini electric, and we bought that without her driving it, sitting in a new Mini or driving a new Mini. I mean, I had driven it and I knew it was exactly right for her with the type of mileage she did, and it was perfect, and did all the sums on it. But she, slightly different, I guess, because we made the decision. But yeah, she bought it without looking at it, driving it.
Did you love it? Did you get it right?
Yeah, I did get it right. Thank goodness I got it right. We need to make it easy. We need to make it easy and memorable.
It's very interesting talking about making things memorable and an experience. And one of the brands that we've worked with and we've spoken to before on an episode is Santander, which is obviously a completely different industry to you. And they have these work cafes, which are a really almost like a crazy concept on paper. It's basically using banking retail space that they pay a fortune for, but not really having it as a bank. Instead, it's a place that you and me could sit down with our laptops, have a coffee and just talk complete rubbish if we wanted to. But it's a great concept. But I hear that Electromin are doing something similar or thinking about doing something similar. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we've looked into and we've started the process of, and I'm not sure timescales at the moment, but we're looking at something called EV Zone. So EV Zone being very much I guess Saudi is a big coffee culture. I mean, on every street corner there's coffee shops. I mean, where I live here, there's 3 underneath my sort of complex where my apartment sort of thing.
Wow.
They're always busy, always packed, and till late at night and so on. So our concept with EV Zone is kind of twofold really. It's a cafe, coffee shop first, the opportunity to come in, relax in a very traditional sort of Saudi environment, blended with some very modern feel to it as well. In the EV Zone are EVs. We're looking at and working with different EV manufacturers. We will have a number of different brands, so it'll be brand agnostic, if you like to use a term, or multi franchise. And we will then either work with these bigger brand partners who maybe want to test the Saudi market. It's a big commitment to say, right, we're going to build lots of dealerships and so on. A lot of these manufacturers will say, well, I don't know how well our vehicles will do. Well, let's introduce a few through this concept and see how well they take off, and then that's testing the water for them. So it works for both parties. We will give seminars and Q&A sessions from there with presentations. We have charging point examples, home chargers and
great
things
idea.
Like
so it's like an education place as well.
Yes, an education place. But if you say, I want to buy that car, we will actually say to you, yeah, you can have that. You can buy that car, or we have stock of that car. So people will be able to test drive. People will be able to check out, online. Again, that blended approach. Go home, check out, through our e-commerce platform, or purchase a car there. And then we'll either deliver it from there. So we'll have a handover centre there. And the design's, a nice big sort of glass box with the opaque glass that, kind of reveals the car and things like that.
Wow.
Or we will home deliver it. There's different options for customers. But
that sounds awesome.
It's an education centre. It's a car dealership, if you want to call it that. We service and maintain the cars through our Electromin auto care network. So that's fine. We've got plenty of sites throughout the whole of Saudi Arabia, and a lot of those businesses now, I think something like about 40 are planned for this year to make them EV ready. So technicians are trained to work on electric vehicles. And of course, if it's, we will have probably an off-site facility for big warranty work and things like that, should it occur. But your everyday maintenance and just guidance and advice will be within our own network. So that's kind of how we're approaching that.
So what are the challenges of being an innovator of electric vehicles in a petrol-centred country?
There's quite a few, really. For me, taking those key learnings from the UK, I was involved in my last job with electric vehicles for about 2 to 3 years, in quite a big way. The two things that I look at is the education of our own people so that they're confident. And again, electric vehicles are brand new to Saudi Arabia. And I think also as well, for us, the charging network is still in its infancy. People think nothing of getting in their cars on a Thursday night for the weekend and driving from Jeddah to Riyadh, 1,000 kilometres, like driving from, Kent to Scotland kind of thing. And they may not do it in one hit, but, they certainly do it. Now, if you haven't got rapid chargers along that route, you're not buying an electric car. And it's simple as that. So I think, Electromin are about 18 months ago, put in a very quick slow charger network, 7 kilowatt charger network in all of its Petrol Express sites. And that's great because that is great for emergencies. But, none of us have time, do we, to be waiting for long charges. We want rapid as much as it can take and then get on with our journey. I think also as well, the heat is a concern for customers as much as, every manufacturer tests their cars in extreme conditions. It's not until, we've been running around in one of the Volvo C40s and doing some kind of real world testing. And yeah, of course it loses a few kilometres, 20 or 30 kilometres on its range, depending where you're going. But we need to have that information, and our salespeople need to live with the product in an environment that the customer will, so they can say genuinely, hand on heart, this is what you're getting, and not being afraid to say, if I don't know, if the figure is say 400 and we're getting 300 out of it, you've got to tell the customer. There's no point saying, oh yes, it'll do 400 kilometres when it won't, in their world, because that is just destroying everything that you've started. So yeah, there's some of the challenges, and just taking some of the key learnings from the UK really, and just trying to apply those. But we're a few years back, a few years behind. So
Electromin is still entering the electric vehicle market, but what are some risks that new entrants are taking when entering this market?
Yeah, I guess there's always a risk to being a new entrant, isn't there? One of the first. And I think for us, it's just making sure that we have the right balance of products. I mean, many manufacturers are starting to introduce electric vehicles to their lineup now, some of the big manufacturers, and drip feed them in. And of course, there's a risk for them as well as us that, you have too fewer cars in stock, the demand becomes higher, and when people go, oh no, you know what, I have a petrol car this time, I'll think about it next time. You bring too many in, and then of course there's financial risk, and as a business, you're having to discount them, and then that has a massive effect on residual values and so on. So it's getting that part of it right from a financial point of view. I think there's lots of Chinese brands coming into. I mean, there's when I arrived in Saudi Arabia, I was shocked at the amount of Chinese brands compared to the UK, and they're slowly coming into the UK. But so many more here, and I think they're more likely to take a risk with electric vehicles at a reasonable price, whereas we're sort of starting with Volvo, which is of course it's a premium product. It's a different product, you could almost say a niche product, so more expensive. So that's a risk for us as well. We're not coming in with a really, really sort of budget value vehicle. We're starting at top end, but that's also a risk for us, I guess.
Dubai is also on a mission to become more electric. Do you think Saudi Arabia can accelerate and pass Dubai's developments?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. From what I've seen, and I go into a bit more detail. It's all around Saudi Vision 2030, which you might have read about, come across. So I think that was announced in around about 2016 by Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince, to look at 3 pillars. So a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation was their 3 pillars. And of course, within those pillars is things like electrification to help reduce emissions, be carbon net zero by 2060, which when you think about some countries in Europe are saying 2050, and we're in an oil-rich country, that's quite a big bold statement. And we're very fortunate with Public Investment Fund, which are funding a lot of big projects to help all of these pillars, to support all of this, create new jobs, electrification, reduction in CO2 emissions, to be a thriving economy. And from what I've seen so far, and I've only been here just over a year, it's kind of a wow moment, really. There's so much going on. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think Dubai have almost sort of, they are ahead of Saudi in some respects, but it's kind of a little bit done there now. Whereas Saudi has so much more to give and kind of go at, really. If you think of Seer, you might have heard of Seer. Mm-hmm. Seer is a all-electric Saudi Arabian car company who should by next year have their first cars on the road. PIF part-own Lucid.
Wow, nice.
So Lucid have a manufacturing plant here, and they have capability, of producing something like about 5,000 units a year, with a target of producing up to 150,000 cars.
Wow.
A year. from their factory, and it's not far from here. It's an hour's drive from here in King Abdullah Economic City, or Cake as it's known as.
Is it? Okay.
So within a few minutes you can get there, and there's all sorts of businesses and things there. It's like a total new town community kind of thing.
Wow.
And the manufacturing plant is there, and it's right at the beginning of its process. But Lucid and Saudi Arabia have got a really good, strong relationship and a proud relationship, sort of thing. So. There'd be more of that coming. I think there'd be more manufacturers wanting to build plants here and work with the government here. And you've only got to look around. When I drive out of I'm in Jeddah, and you drive around, and the amount of new buildings and businesses, and it says PIF, Public Investment Fund funded sort of thing. You think, well, yeah, they're really going for it. And from electrification, there's so many cars on the road. I think there's something like 5 million cars just in Riyadh, and Saudi's aim is to have 1 million of those by 2030 being electrified. 20 to 30% of the cars on the road in Riyadh will be electric by 2030, kind of thing. So
infrastructure is pretty important then.
Yeah, very much so. And in certain city like Riyadh's very different to Jeddah, but it's a big thriving city. There's loads going on, loads of development. So yeah, having that infrastructure is absolutely crucial.
Can you walk us through the partnership that Electromin have with Volvo?
Yeah, absolutely. So Volvo were in the kingdom previously, but with a different dealer group, and there's been about a 4 or 5 year sort of hiatus, really. So there's no electric Volvos in the kingdom. So we've signed a partnership with Volvo to sell purely electric vehicles, and we will be opening a showroom around about sort of summertime, about sort of June time. In Riyadh, first of all, and then we'll expand across Saudi, launching with their current sort of 2 electric vehicles, and then adding the EX30, EX90 to that lineup as well. So it's very exciting. We had a C40 at the EV show in Riyadh. We sponsored the EV show in Riyadh back in October. So Electromin had a lot of space in the show. And we had a Volvo there, and the amount of interest, you either had on one side, you had sort of the EV interest and people wanting to know about EV. And the other side, you had people that, my father, my grandfather, we still got a Volvo in the family, all those sorts of things. So there's a real love for Volvo from both a sort of classic and modern car, and that safety aspect of the brand. So I think it'll be really, really successful. I think, it's very exciting to know that we're bringing Volvo back to the kingdom. And with electrified vehicles only, it's, going back to that risk question. Yes, of course it is a risk, but one we're willing to take.
And that concludes the end of the episode. Thank you to everyone for listening. I've been Octavian, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Let us know what you think by carrying on the conversation on LinkedIn. This episode has been brought to you by ACF Technologies, global leaders in customer experience management solutions. Now let's get into some quick fire questions. The Saudi League's taken the world by storm. Is there a Saudi League that you support, that you like, or do you not really watch?
Oh, a little football question. Okay, I should preface this question with I know very little about football. I don't really support a team. But what I do know is that the local team play not far from here. And one of my colleagues, Yusuf, the other day, and Haytham, or 2 of my colleagues, said, right, we'll take you to a football match. We'll take you to a Saudi football match one day. So I'm hoping that they do, because I think it'll be a great experience, epic experience.
Hopefully,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you know more on the next podcast.
Sounds good. I got a random question actually, Chris. So obviously you're originally from Kent, as we mentioned earlier. What's the biggest challenge or biggest shock to the system moving from the UK and say Kent to obviously Saudi? What's the biggest shell shock to that?
A lot of people would think alcohol, being in Saudi Arabia, but I've had the best year of my life not drinking. I just feel better and healthier, and even when I've been to the UK, I've not even touched any alcohol. So it's a good thing for me, I guess.
What was your first car?
My first car was a Mark II Escort 1.3L in Olympic blue, and I even remember the reg number. It was a JHJ31N.
Wow, fair play.
You never forget your first car, do you?
No, you don't. No, you definitely don't.
Even if it was rubbish. I mean, it got written off. I'd been driving for about 3 months. I thought I was, Ayrton Senna, and ended up, crashing it and all that sort of stuff. You just
put it into a tree or something.
Think, yeah, look at me, I'm brilliant. That was my first car.
Wow. What do you drive now?
You can't judge me on this, but my car out here is a 2009 Cadillac Escalade.
What? I'm going to
Yeah, I know.
judge you.
Yeah, don't judge. Please don't judge. So eventually we will go into electric car. Of course I will. When we open the showroom and things like that. I mean, it's done 300,000 odd kilometres. It's had its fair share of problems. I love it though. When I came here, driving is quite challenging, especially in Jeddah. The road systems are quite challenging, and some of the driving is kind of like quite scary, but in a good way. And I thought, right, I need a big car that's got a few scars on it. Doesn't matter if someone hits it, knocks it, scratch it, and what have you. And I've been very fortunate to always have really nice cars when I was in the UK, company cars and things like that. And it's like a breath of fresh air because you don't care so much about it. You do care about it, but you're not kind of going, get away from me or whatever,
Car part dents and stuff like that, which you used to get paranoid with new cars.
Yeah. It's covered in scratches and dents and so on.
Yeah.
And because it's awful on fuel economy. It's in the sort of single digits almost some days. But petrol is a lot cheaper here. So, and I promised myself I'd have a car that I would never have in the UK, just as a stopgap.
I think you've smashed that.
Yeah, I have ticked all those boxes. I think I'm going to be hard pressed to get rid of it. I think I'd still keep it as a bit of a weekend car or something. But it's,
you're emotionally attached to it now.
I am emotionally attached to it. That's what cars do, isn't it?
Yeah, they do.
It's got the deploying side steps. It's got all the kind of big stuff an Escalade would have. It's got the big chrome wheels on it. I mean, they're all scratched, of course.
At least they're not spinners. They're not spinners, are they? You're not 50 Cent, are you?
No, I have thought about it. No, I'm joking.
Oh, that's brilliant. No, I love that. And you're right. It's amazing how people get emotionally attached to cars. My other half, we recently bought the equivalent of a 7-seater van, which is the ugliest car I've ever owned. And it literally looks like a bot. She says it's the greatest car I've ever had. She loves it because it does everything that we need.
She came over April, first time last year, came over. And I was thinking, I've got to pick her up in the Cadillac in the Escalator from the airport. What's she going to? She's like, what have you bought here? She actually went, I like this.
Yeah.
She's never thought about any of my cars. She goes, I like the colour, but she's never said, I like this. This is nice. Yeah. So it's like, that's all right. Then I got away with this.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool.